Hello, everybody. It's Paula. This is the Common Book Show, and today we're here with Richard. He's the only one live in studio, and then we have Brian and we have Paul. Paul is in Canada.
Oh, look at that nice Christmas tree.
Look at that. Oh, it's beautiful. Paul is back in his, I guess it's not his native land. It's his homeland now, though. So
the Christmas tree was made out of crab pots stacked up. It's probably, well, you can see how high it is.
Wow.
So
I
up there.
see. I have a different pair of glasses on now because I wanted to. This book was given to me as a gift.
Tip it. This way, yeah.
From Brian. He bought it at a book sale, and he knows I like short stories, so I started reading it. And I don't really want to read anything particular from this story, but I did. I first of all, it was very hard to read because it was written in like a Irish brogue.
Oh, wow.
So it was like, was it this one or was it this one?
Is that Robert Graves?
No, this is the book that you gave me, the short stories. All right,
Right, but I didn't know who the story was by.
Oh no, it's Mary Lerner. I've never heard of her before.
I think I've heard her name before.
This was the best short story from 1916. Okay.
19 when?
16, 1-6.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's
Oh
called.
my God! So I didn't know that whole book was like a compendium going all the way back, or anything.
1915 was the first one, and it was
cool.
Zelig, and that was a okay story. But this Little Selves, even though it was hard to read, it was about this extremely old woman who is starting to get to the point where she's dying, basically. But what she's doing, and people don't understand it because they think that she's like babbling nonsense, and she's not babbling nonsense. What she's doing is she's telling herself the stories from her childhood because she's afraid that she's not afraid of dying herself, but she's afraid of having all of these children that she was die.
Wow.
So it's like these past selves. She wants these past selves to be somehow immortalized. Immortalized? Is that the right? Immortalized.
Yeah.
And so finally, her niece figures out what she's doing, and I'm going to cry just saying it. And she says, "Tell me the stories. I'll keep her alive.
Cool.
I'll keep them alive." Because she pictures herself as all these different people coming up through her life, and she's like living in these memories at her death, on her deathbed, and she's absorbed because she's so afraid that all of her past selves are going to be gone. She doesn't care about the present self; she's ready to go, but it's the past selves that she were. So she told her all the stories, and she said she'd keep the stories until she was gone. And I thought that was so charming. You know, I even though the language was obtuse.
It makes me think of the older cultures, the native cultures that just have oral histories. You know.
Yeah. Well, I really like that. I really like the idea behind that story. Not so much the language was really unusual, but thank you for this, Brian. I love short stories, and
Yeah, you're welcome.
Now that I'm off the Robert Graves mythology, which I can't absorb anymore because I'm starting to have weird dreams about people with bodies of mules, and it's like I can't do it anymore. But so that's what I'm into now. This is my nighttime book that I read before bed.
Awesome.
And I've been listening to another mythology book. It's more than Greek mythology, though. I'm listening to it on Libby, which I like to talk about every show because it's such a great.
So you said you're reading a whole ton of mythology, and it's getting to be a bit much right now. Like, what were you reading? I mean, you've read Joseph Campbell, obviously.
I took a mythology class, and so I listened to several different books, mythology books, and I read I read Mythology for Dummies, which was really was fun because, but it's still and then I'm listening to Kenneth Davis. Don't know much about mythology, and it's incorporating all the different mythologies, and he's on Celtic mythology right now. There's some weird shit in there.
Oh yeah,
all
the Nordic countries.
You know,
it's very weird.
Yeah. So Carl Jung believed that all these things are present in our, they're archetypes that are present in our brain.
Mm-hmm.
But I can see
in our genetics even. Yeah.
There is such a connection between all the mythology of the world. I mean, there's similarities and there's stories, and of course there's a flood story, and there's even scholars even think that there may have actually been a flood that inundated the known world at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But
there definitely was.
But even in Native American mythology, there's a flood. So but of course the Native Americans came over the land bridge, most of them, and so maybe that story was ancient from a time when they were in the old world.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I'm really the interconnectedness of all this mythology is really mind blowing.
Mm-hmm.
I knew all the stuff that Christians stole from the old mythologies, but I didn't know how connected all, even Egyptian and Babylonian and all that stuff that they all borrowed from each other. So
I just read that biography a few months ago on Carl Jung. And,
what was the name of that one? Do you remember?
Here, let me get up and look. It's right here.
Because I read one a couple years ago and it was great.
It's Jung the Mystic by Gary Lockman.
Oh no, this was Jung's writing. He wrote his memories. It was a memoir.
But this goes into all the mythology. Like he was very, very heavily into the mythology of the Nordic countries, and like when he was a little boy, for several years he saw things, and like he believed this old man followed him around that wasn't like a real man. Only he could see him.
It was his dark dark self, or whatever he called it. Shadow self.
Shadow self, or whatever. But he believed in some weird stuff, and
alchemy, and
when he was Freud's student, Freud tried to beat all that out of him. He said, this is all nonsense, and but
that's
Jung was like his best student.
Yeah, but that they also broke on the whole everything's about penises idea.
Oh yeah, Jung thought that was bullshit. Yeah,
I do too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Vincent van Gogh's biographies.
Yeah.
I didn't want to
But
forget
he was
that.
deep into mythology, Jung. Really, I didn't realize he was that into it. you know?
He was a really interesting guy. I really I should give you my copy of his memoir. I think you would like it.
Yeah, that's what this book refers to, a lot of that and stuff.
Okay. So here we go.
Yeah, I would like reading it.
Yeah, I think you would. So what's on your list, Richard?
Well, you've been to Paris, right?
I have.
So does that mean you went to the Louvre?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
What is the main competitor to the Louvre? Like, is there another museum that
In Paris?
Yeah.
There's a modern museum. I can't remember what the name of it is. I didn't go.
I can't pronounce it.
I didn't go there. I saw it from the outside, but I had limited. We were there for 10 days. And so I had to pick and choose what I did. And we were in the Louvre. The Louvre it's incredible. It's amazing. It's overhung though. I mean, I'm not an expert on this, but there's too much art on the walls.
I've heard other people say that.
It's overwhelming. It's like when you go to the Albright Knox, of course we have less art in Buffalo, but when you go to the Albright Knox, you see
Mr. Windsor. Look at the comments.
Could you? James is here. Yeah.
There's a flaw in your operation there, Mr. Windsor.
So, you walk into the room and it's like you're overwhelmed with. I mean, there's an occasional piece of art that's hanging by itself, like the Mona Lisa was hanging by itself, and but it's really overwhelming, and I left there exhausted. It was just too much to take in.
So, Richard, I think the other major museum is the Museum d'Orsay.
Yes, that's what I was wondering if Paula knew about that.
It took me a few minutes to remember it.
I saw it from the outside, but I didn't go inside.
You're on top of things, Brian.
It took my memory 3 minutes to remember it.
So the Musée d'Orsay, they're the main competitor of Louvre, so they're always trying to get more tourists and more.
Yeah.
So they're always trying to come up with something. Here's the latest thing they've come up with. They fed all the biographies ever written about Vincent van Gogh and all the letters that he ever wrote into a computer program, which is using artificial intelligence to take all this information and create a Vincent van Gogh.
Oh my God!
So when you walk into the lobby, there's this big portrait of Van Gogh, lit from behind.
Yeah.
And you pick up a microphone and you have a conversation with Vincent van Gogh.
I would do that.
That's what I was going to say. Good idea or bad idea?
Oh no, I would do that, and I would do it. Oh my God, that's like. Did you ever think about your if you could invite anyone dead or alive to a dinner party?
Yeah,
definitely. This would be an amazing thing to get a conversation between people who should have met but were different time periods. That would be amazing. I love that.
But how authentic would it be? How real would it be?
It doesn't matter, really.
No, I'm not saying it couldn't be fun. I'm just saying, would it really be anything like talking to Van Gogh?
Yeah. So Brian's raising an interesting point. Are you talking to a fictional character or a semi-realistic character?
Well, you know what? He did write a lot of letters. I've read some of it. I've read books of
900.
Yeah. I've read books of his letters, or one book, I think. And,
hey, James.
And he was, hi.
Mr. James Walker is in the house.
Is in the house. So I've read books. I mean, I find reading people's letters, personal letters, a better look into their psyche than anything anybody writes about them, or even things that they write about their own work. It's because you see the pieces of their humanity that are petty, or the pieces of the humanity that are grand. You see how they think because they're writing to people that they know very well, and they're willing to be intimate with them. So if they're feeding his letters into there, I mean, it wouldn't be a real conversation with him, but it would be interesting to see how the words would jumble up into a response to whatever you ask, especially if you ask something that doesn't have to do with his work. You ask something like...
well, that's what the reporter asked.
What did the reporter ask?
Do the conversations are there like more of one type or of another type? And the museum curator said, oh yeah. The thing most people will ask is, why did you commit suicide?
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Wow.
No, I would ask him, did you commit suicide or did those boys shoot you by accident?
I think I would. I think I probably would want to know. I want to know about specific paintings. I mean, he does talk a lot about his paintings and his letters. He talks about the light on the flowers and the people's lined faces and how much texture there was, and how excited he was by the light, and I think he was a remarkable character. Crazy but remarkable.
Do you think he had like Asperger's or something, or?
I think in order to be that creative, you can't be normal. You you have to have some sort of different way of thinking, which would be, in our society, the definition of that would be madness. You know, maybe it's not technically madness, but if you think differently than everybody else thinks, that's kind of the definition in our society.
Now, Mr. Walker, you know a lot about creative people in music. Do most of them have almost like a mental health problem?
The dark side.
Their mental health problem is not thinking like average people.
Yeah. Well,
I would like to say that Paula reminds me of a popular meme that says, girls, if they were given the power of time travel, and it shows a girl going up to a woman saying, hello, I'm your granddaughter. And then it says, guys being given the power of time travel. And the guy says, hey, George Lucas, stick with that. Jar Jar is the anti-Yoda. just stick with that.
yeah, I can see that. I don't know. Where would you go? Where would you go, James, if you could time travel?
Good grief.
Yeah.
I'm still a guy. I would either go somewhere to see Jenny Lynn in concert so I know what that experience really is like.
Who is Jenny Lynn?
Jenny Lynn was like the Celine Dion of the 1890s.
Oh, I think I've heard her name. Yeah, I think I know who you're talking about.
So the problem is she was the most famous singer in the world just before recorded music occurred.
Oh, wow. So that's a
Yeah.
good choice. That's a really good choice then. Yeah, I think back to what my aunts used to think, my older aunts who are now like, they would be in their 110 or something. And the thing that they thought was a beautiful voice is when it was really truly like this. They thought that was beautiful. You know, so I don't know if you'd enjoy it that much. But
Well, she had something because she's the reason Jennifer is one of the most popular names in the United States.
wow, that's amazing. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, where would you go, Richard?
I was going to say I'm disinterested. I would pass.
Really?
But I like James Walker's approach. Like there are things in history that people rave about, but there's no record of.
Right.
And it would be nice to see, to go back and witness that.
Wouldn't it be cool to go to the library at Alexandria before it burnt down?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And see all those books. I mean, you'd have to have the gift, you'd have to be able to read all those languages, but I would love to do that. That would be great. Just like they used to steal books off of ships, and they would have a scribe copy the book, put the copy back on the ship to go to wherever it was going, and keep the original. I want to go there.
Oh, speaking of ships, it's the anniversary of the Boston Tea Party.
Yeah.
And I'm drinking tea.
And do you know what made that possible? There was a guy in charge of guarding the ship.
Yeah.
He fell asleep. He was such a sound sleeper. He slept through the whole thing.
Wow.
Of them throwing the
So he was a
thing-
British guard.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Imagine he had a lot of explaining to do. Do you know why they were throwing this stuff overboard?
Because of the tea tax, right?
Sort of. In other words, there was a company that made tea that made a deal with the British government, okay? Charge everybody else a tax on tea except us, all right? And I don't know how they arranged this deal, but the king said, okay. That meant that their tea was sold a lot cheaper than all the other tea. You follow me?
Yeah.
And
So
the
all the tea
other
merchants
tea
were pissed.
shops were pissed. Like, how did they sell it so cheap? And then they found out about this deal. That's why they went and threw the stuff. That was all. That was all tea to go to the people with the deal.
Wait.
Well, I was reading this
so,
historian's take.
Wait, I want to see if I. So
Okay.
it was a store that was selling tea. It wasn't a tea manufacturer.
Well, same thing. You know, it would be like Apple has their own stores.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. Okay, so it was a manufacturer, or grower, and shipper of tea. Oh, okay. This is news to me.
Yeah.
I got the news a little late.
Yeah, according to a couple of prominent historians that I've read a little about, they say that the entire American Revolution wasn't really about freedom, it was about economics. It was the merchants in the U.S. basically were just, it was more about money than anything, which really makes sense.
That makes sense to me.
All right, James.
Yeah.
James, what was that?
Always follow the money.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Well, does that mean
Yeah.
does that mean that's what's happening now? We're heading toward a big commotion with people are feeling economically strained and politics.
And the economy's doing awesome right now.
Well, it is,
The
but
stock
For
market's
certain
higher than
classes,
it's ever
yeah.
been.
it is. But you know what? I don't buy a lot of. I mean, I don't buy like a lot of foods that are you just stick in the oven and you cook. I buy
No,
everything.
me either. I never
buy
do.
I buy everything like vegetables and fruit and everything. And I have noticed if it hasn't gone up in price, the quantity's gone down. Like
Right.
so,
Right.
if there used to be 5 mini avocados in a bag, there's 4 now, and it
Yeah.
might be the same price, but you're getting less. So I mean, there's a lot.
But people think that
something to
this
say
is
about
all.
that.
People think this has all happened just recently. But like I told my son during the beginning of the pandemic, it was like I told him since I lived on a fixed income, I noticed the 2 or 3 years before the pandemic in 2020, all the food prices were steadily creeping up.
Yeah,
And then during the pandemic, they saw the opportunity, and even these corporate CEOs
Right.
said it. They were taped saying it. They saw an opportunity to screw people, and they took it.
they're price gouging. That's against
and they
the law.
took it. It has nothing to do with Joe Biden. It has nothing to. It's all corporations.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'd like to.
And-
I have a couple
Richard's
notes
got-
on that.
yeah.
Right. These are all companies that said the only reason we're raising our prices is because the supply chain costs went up.
yeah,
All right. But
There's a
then
bunch of
they have to issue their profit statements. So look at this. Exxon, it went from 20 billion to 66 billion.
That's insane.
You know who Archer Daniels Midland is?
Yeah.
They supply a lot of supermarkets.
oh, okay.
They own
Okay.
everything.
They went from
Food-wise.
1.7 billion to 4 billion in profit.
Oh my God.
Heinz,
tripled their
ketchup,
profit.
etc., went from 0.3 billion to 2.3 billion. Mining companies went up in profits, telecommunications companies went up in profits, technology companies and banking all went up in
They're
profits.
raping the whole country.
It's just,
It's a
let's not let this opportunity pass us by.
well. What's happening is we're what those who forget who don't know history are doomed to repeat it.
Right.
So I was telling Richard that I've been watching The Gilded Age, and now the episode I'm watching, which is the second last episode in the second season, which is the current season, the labor unions are starting. It's like the end of the 1800s, and the labor unions are beginning to form, and they're going head to head. And I remember, my stepfather, John, he was a little boy when his parents were, his father and brothers were working in the coal mines. And he remembers going into the town and watching the people that were strike breakers beating the strikers with bats.
Oh yeah.
He remembers seeing all that, and so he lived through that part of history, and he self-documented. Even though he was a little kid, he knew what was going on. And now I'm watching this show, and it's showing that. It's showing they're at that point, and I had to turn it off because I couldn't absorb it right now. Did
you ever read about the massacres of all the coal miners
well, that was what I'm talking. That's what
Virginia?
I'm talking about. This was in Pennsylvania by the Monongahela River. His father was a coal miner, and his brothers were coal miners, and he lived through that strike process in Pennsylvania, and I mean he told. I've got those stories on tape someplace in my basement. One of my New Year's resolutions is to find all that stuff that's in my basement.
Well, they hired hundreds, they hired thousands of Civil War vets that were broke and took the money to go and shoot coal miners. Because the coal miners wanted like another day, they wanted a day off, they wanted benefits.
That's what they're talking about in this series now is what they want. This is how they said it: 8 hours of work, 8 hours of sleep, 8 hours to myself, and or not to myself, to do what I please. And these people that own these corporations, these big manufacturers, are incensed by this. You want what? You don't want to. They're working 6 days a week, 12-hour days, 1 day off. I can't even. I mean, it was bad enough when I was working 8 hours a day. I don't know when anybody. I mean, in those days, you would need one person staying home and taking care of everything, because by the time you come home, you just plop down on your bed dead.
Yeah.
And rich people will never give anything away unless they have to, unless they're mandated. So we're back to that, I think. I fear. But, all right, so where are we? Is anybody...
Mr. Walker, can I play that video we discussed?
Sure.
Okay, Mr. Walker sent me this video.
I can't wait. Oh, this one, yeah.
You heard about this?
Is this the one you sent me?
Possibly.
And you said, when's it okay to hit a woman or something like that?
That would be the one, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, right now is the time to hit her.
Yeah. Well, if you have to defend yourself, that's a whole thing. But people should not be hitting each other. There's no reason for that. But yes, that woman, obviously she wound up and she punched that guy first. But I mean, wouldn't it have been better for him to just try to restrain her at that point? He's bigger and stronger than her.
Doesn't work in today's.
You looked almost as big as him.
Well, I still think that somebody should have been the adult in the room.
My dear Paula, here's the problem with your thinking on that particular matter. If you grab a woman to restrain her, therefore keeping her from punching you, and you bring her down to a position where you are in control of her, you're still going to be accused of violence against her, and she'll use the bruises on her wrist.
Right. But we're not talking about what you're going to be accused of. Either way, both of them are doing the wrong thing. The problem is it's the state of mind. I mean, if you let your anger and your frustration get the better of you like that, it doesn't do anybody any good. If he was angry, he would have knocked her out cold. Well, I don't know. She was doing pretty good there for herself.
He never landed a hit.
Well, yeah, I mean, and also I don't condone that kind of behavior. Even I don't. People should not hit each other. Violence is never the answer. But people are flawed You know, I mean, those two people are obviously flawed. I mean, I'm flawed. You're flawed. I'm sorry, James, you are. But I mean, we all are. We all are. And the thing is, we lose our tempers. We do stupid things. But when is it right? It's never right for a man to hit a woman. It's never right for a woman to hit a man. That's why we have language.
There's something called verbal jujitsu. You ever hear of that?
Yeah, of course.
And you know what it means?
Well, it's sparring with words, right?
It means somebody comes at you with an aggressive set of words, right?
Yeah.
And you
deflect.
Yeah, in other words, you let their momentum bypass you.
Mm-hmm.
And this lecturer gave an example.
Yeah.
Someone comes up and says, "Buddy, you are one dumb son of a bitch." And the verbal jujitsu is, my wife says that all the time. You might have a point there.
Yeah. Well, there is a way to respond to that. That's you respond, or you can. I find bringing humor into it usually is, I've never gotten punched for it, but there's no, you can't control what somebody else says to you. You can only control the way it affects you, right? That's what you're talking about.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's your Buddhist training.
Yeah. Well, that is.
It's also Stoicism.
It's Stoicism. Yeah. It's Buddhism. It comes out in a lot of, it comes out as the lesson in a lot of mythology, that it's not responding in kind is not necessarily in your best interest. Okay, James, let's talk about that. Have you ever been hit by a woman like that?
Yes.
Like she was really going after him like that? Or just slapped?
I have had situations similar to that more than once.
Really? And did you respond in kind?
Yeah, what was your strategy?
I believe that women deserve equal rights and lefts.
Rights and lefts? Is that what you said?
Well, sounds good to me.
That was
right.
very clever.
Interestingly enough, in one situation, I was standing. Well, I was in a bar. There was one particular woman in the bar who I wasn't speaking to, who insisted that I had to speak to her. And after chasing me around the bar for over a half hour, I finally just decided to plant myself and let her regale me with whatever vitriol she wanted to say. And when she didn't like the fact that I was simply passively standing there looking at her and not replying to her,
right,
decided to take a swipe at me.
Okay.
And I used my inner Matrix and Muhammad Ali to simply move out of her way, which only caused her to continue trying to hit me. At which point I said to her, "You cannot hit me." So she grabbed me by the shirt to try to pull me into her next punch, which ripped my shirt and the buttons on my shirt.
I got to find you some new girls.
At this point, one of my female friends came in between the two of us, pushed her away and said, "He can't hit you, but if you're spoiling for a fight, how about we go outside and take care of this together?" That is when the girl ceased and desisted, except she went and found some guy to talk him into trying to start a fight with me. Now, interestingly enough, in the bar itself, a bunch of patrons who only noticed her trying to hit me were all ready to come over and start beating me up, because if a woman's mad at you, you must deserve it. But the waitress and the police officer who was working security dissuaded them from that, because the barmaid said, I don't know what's going on, but this girl's been chasing him through the bar all night long, and he didn't do anything. His hands were at his side, and she just started swinging at him.
Well, let's see that somebody, and it was a woman that came to your, it was somebody, a female, right? She was a female barmaid, and she was the one that stuck up for you.
How do you know? How do you know these days if it was female or not?
Oh.
But yeah. A female friend of mine physically came between the two of us, and a female barmaid told the security guard and the white knight.
So we know, women know there are crazy women. We do know that, and that we don't like those crazy women. We understand that they exist, though. We do. Obviously, you've met them all.
Not all.
No, I've met a good percentage myself.
I don't
You didn't
know.
hog them all.
Oh, well, that's nice that he shares. All right. So Brian, you said you were reading what?
It is The Origin of Time, I think. Wait, let me look. I just got it. Yeah, it's On the Origin of Time.
Who wrote it?
Well, the second part of the title is Stephen Hawking's Final Theory. This is what he was working on literally up to his death.
Uh-huh.
And it's by the doctor in physics, Thomas Hertog, that worked with him to develop that theory, like at his side every day.
Did you get into it yet, or did you just got it?
I just got it like the day before yesterday.
Tell me when you're reading it. I want you to let me know if there is such a thing as time. I'd be curious.
Right. Well, I mean, generally, like in the introduction, they talk about that, but basically it's like, yeah, the short answer would be yes, there is, but it's not like we think it is.
Yeah.
And but this book is just the first chapter. This guy, Thomas Hertog, isn't just a straight up scientist. He's not just an amazing scientist. I mean, Stephen Hawking asked him, would you help me work on this theory?
Yeah.
And develop the theory that is his, like if he hadn't have died when he did, who knows how far they would have gotten. But it's basically, Stephen Hawking actually realized some of his theories when he was younger were wrong.
Well,
and
yeah, I mean, you
changed his mind on certain things, and basically it's the development of a quantum theory of the universe, and like he started believing that the universe developed a little bit differently than we thought, like how we've always thought anyway, and I haven't gotten far enough into it, but the first chapter is just mind-blowing because this guy's a physicist, but he goes back to Plato and Aristotle, and he obviously knows what he's talking about. He gets into philosophy.
It's well written.
And oh yeah, and he says, but that's the thing about Stephen Hawking. That's his main point, is that most physicists are afraid of those questions.
Right. It's not only physicists. In academia, everybody, the older generation is always living in fear of the younger generation changing their theories, because that's what they have. That's going to be left after they're gone, and they don't want to be. That's how they feel they will die if their theories die. So it's a terrible thing in academia. There's so much backbiting and people.
Right. But Stephen Hawking was so famous, like I didn't realize, like this guy was describing how at Cambridge, Stephen Hawking had almost like, not secret, but he put together this group of graduate students that were like, they were working on just 2 or 3 different aspects of Stephen Hawking's
his
physics.
lab, yeah.
and it just sounded like really incredible. And Stephen Hawking would just, like this Hertog said, he would just change every 6 months. All of a sudden you go, okay, no, I want to work on this aspect of it. And he get everybody working on that. And like, even the part that amazed me is even with all of his horrible physical disabilities, about the worst you could have.
Yeah.
Like this guy said, he had a sense of humor, and after he got to know him, he didn't even have to speak, and he understood what he was thinking. And it's pretty awesome.
Well, I'm glad.
So,
that sounds like an interesting book. I think it was something I'd be interested in looking at. So
yeah.
So Paul, what have you been? Paul, you're back in your home, Paul. Are you working on any pictures since you've been back?
Well, during my stay in New York, I took over 50,000 images. So
that sounds almost impossible.
He's still processing them all.
Wow.
Nowhere even near processing all. So I've got the whole winter months to do all my editing and processing.
Well, that's
so I'm
good.
just taking my time. So as I shot pictures, I bought a external hard drive, a 4 terabyte drive, and I every day that I shot, I put the month, the date, and the day I shot, and
that's very organized of you. I
so
applaud
I uploaded every image I took that day to that folder, and as I shot through the course of my stay, I did exactly that. So I had
wow, that's great.
So I had an easier way of trying to find things.
Yeah.
Whenever he comes across one that he finds noteworthy, he sends it to me.
Uh-huh.
Look at this photo of a snake.
Oh, that's awesome. Holy crap.
Where was that?
I was at the Buffalo Zoo.
So you
cool.
took it through the window?
Yep.
It's so sharp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I purposely looked because, the windows are always smudged up with fingerprints and whatnot. So I constantly was looking for a spot that was kind of clear that I could shoot through, and I found a spot. So
He said the snake was
awesome.
The snake was tracking him and trying to stare him down.
Wow.
That is cool, because I could never get him to look straight at me like that.
That is totally beautiful. That is so beautiful.
well, thanks.
Now, he has an arrangement with the local gift shop. I give you and then you take a cut and I take a cut. I said, that's going to sell at the gift shop.
That is amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Don't you think like a guy would like that photo in his house, a bachelor?
I think that there's a whole bunch of people.
There's girls that would. Women.
Who find snakes fascinating. I find snakes fascinating. I like the mythology of snakes, and I like they used to be connected to female godhead, and then of course Christianity turned it around to be evil. So everything about snakes now it's the evil thing, when it wasn't. That wasn't how it was before. And I just love snakes, and they're just amazing. They're beautiful creatures, and fascinating. I love them.
This one here should be hanging in Rich's studio.
Oh, look at that! That is beautiful.
Wow.
Richard, isn't that in your studio?
I don't recall.
I think
I
think there might be a picture of a snake, but I don't know if it's that one.
Yeah.
But so you're processing photos, and so Richard, I'm sure you have a million things on your list.
I do. Do you want something short?
Well, we've got 16 minutes left. We can work on something for the rest of the show.
The Dewey Decimal System. What's that?
The snake is in the gallery.
Oh, the snake is in the gallery, Paul.
Oh, we just.
That's what I thought.
He just verified it.
Tom just verified it. Okay,
So-
Dewey Decimal System.
Right. Do you know how it categorizes?
Yes.
It's like 100 would be contemporary, 200 would be so-and-so, 300 would be, right?
Yeah.
And then within each 100, it's broken down even further.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where is transgenderism?
Non-existent.
No, I don't think it would be non-existent.
In science?
Because it goes back to hermaphrodite in Greek mythology. So there's got to be some kind of category. Would it be Would it be mythology?
If you look for transgenderism, right?
Uh-huh.
You look in the psychology category
Under maladies?
between, on one side of it is prostitution and child trafficking.
Uh-huh.
On the other side is BDSM and fetishes. And then you have transgenderism in between. So it just goes to show that
That's
politics is
mad.
involved in everything.
Yeah.
You know, like everything you decide, you're making a judgment on it.
Hey, yeah, that's crazy. When you said prostitution, I just want to I do a little side trip. Paul, did you know that they legalized prostitution in Maine?
No, I didn't.
I just heard that on television
Really?
yesterday.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Really?
That's weird.
I don't know if it's current or if it's coming up, but
Well, I don't. You know what? I don't see why not. You know, it's like any other kind of a job. I suppose that if they're going to provide
It's
a
going to
service,
happen anyway.
yeah, I
yeah.
agree. I agree. I don't think there's any reason to demonize
and
it.
as long as the health concerns are addressed, you know, if they're going to make a business out of it.
Oh, I
then-
remember. It was on the Daily Show. They had a thing about Nevada, and they talked to some prostitutes, and they talked to them about, you know, they have to be licensed. They have to make sure they have to have their medical
This is interesting.
things.
Yeah, it makes sense.
First state to decriminalize prostitution, only for selling sex, not paying. Oh, so.
Oh, so they don't go after the woman. They go after the guy who's paying for it?
Oh, wow.
What do you think of that, Mr. Walker?
I bet you got
That's
something to say
fucked
about
up.
that.
Equal rights, right?
System. They decriminalize it for the women providing the service and just continue going after the guys anyway. Because remember, the only thing that's really different here is that you used to be able to arrest both the prostitute and the customer. Now, the prostitute can actually work with police to entrap customers.
Well, I don't understand why prostitution's illegal. I don't really get it.
Because it's difficult to tax something when you can't do inventory.
You gotta
Hey, they do it in
put
Holland.
a meter on it.
You know,
And
Yeah, no, I know.
That's why in Vegas, it has to be done at places that have agreed to keep track of everything.
And I think that's fine as long as these women aren't, you know. I mean, it's a job. I mean, it's not a job I would want, but it serves a purpose. There are people who need the service. So why shouldn't it be available?
Well, I'm glad
Wow.
you understand service, especially considering the average woman finds 80% of men disgusting.
Well, I don't know about.
well, just because we're disgusting doesn't mean you can't love us. But,
Yeah, you got to be the right kind of disgusting.
yeah, I was in Vegas when I was 18 years old with my friend, and we're sitting in the hotel room, and he opens the phone book and goes, "You want to call some hookers?" I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, it's legal." And I said, "Get out of here." Like, I couldn't believe it. And he pretends he's calling them up and everything. And I'm like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, I mean, it's not something that appeals to me, but I see there's a market for it. What the hell? Is that in Buffalo?
The Buffalo Girls in winter.
No, that was taken in Jamaica. That was 2013. I took the Buffalo Jills to Jamaica, and we did a calendar shoot.
Oh.
No kidding.
How nice
That's
for
the
you.
I know. Well, I took a friend with me. We were there for 5 days, so
Well, that's good. That's fun.
we
What
had fun.
memories light the shadows of my mind.
So how about this, Paula? I worked at a restaurant in the late 80s that had two Buffalo Jills waitresses that were actively on the Buffalo Jills, and they were really beautiful in their mid-20s maybe.
Yeah.
Are they in this picture?
And
No.
I don't think so, but the one girl, she was gorgeous. She's a blonde. She had very large breasts, and she used to wear like tight cashmere sweaters and stuff. And so all the guys, of course, the cooks in the kitchen noticed it, but there was this one cook, Mark, and he used to actually sexually harass her. And I used to tell him, "No way, dude, I'm not going for that." you know, these girls, and he used to do it to the other Buffalo Joe, and I'd say, look, you know, those really nice girls, you can't do this. I won't accept any sexual harassment in the kitchen. And then he'd always want to fight me in the kitchen, and I'd say, no, it's dangerous in here. When we punch out after work, I'll beat the shit out of you in the parking lot, you fucking piece of shit. And then I'd go out there, and then he'd come to work the next day. I'd say, where were you? You weren't out in the parking lot after work. Oh, I had to go meet my girlfriend. She called me, you know, and I was like, yeah, you.
Oh, well.
So I protected those girls.
Well, that's nice of you. I mean, I have my own feelings about
that. Was in 1987.
The way people women dress. I know that it's not politically correct, but I think that if you want to be taken seriously, you shouldn't dress like you're trying to be a
hooker.
Well, no, I wouldn't say a hooker.
They're trying to get a tip.
Yeah, that's true.
Whatever.
If they were waitresses, you are trying to get tips. I know.
Well, yeah, that's the idea.
She was a nice girl, though.
Yeah.
Got to flirt.
All right, so we got off the track again, Richard. Are you still on the Dewey Decimal System?
No, I just wanted to point that out to you. Yesterday, let's go back in history. December 15th, 1939. What was significant about that day? You want to take a guess?
December 13th?
December 15th,
December
1939.
15th. I don't have, my historical knowledge is not so great.
It was the world premiere of Gone with the Wind.
Oh, wow.
Where did they have it?
Buffalo.
No.
Did they have it in Atlanta?
Yes, they did. Why? Why would you have the premiere in Atlanta?
Because it was about the South. And
the person who wrote it was from Atlanta.
Oh, okay.
All right, she wrote the book.
Yeah.
Book sold 1 million copies like in a month.
Yeah.
So they decided to do, by the time they made the movie, the book had already sold 7 million copies. So anyway, so they show, and of course everybody has to attend the premiere.
Right.
Well, the woman who plays the maid, Hattie McDaniel,
Yeah.
when she came to attend the premiere, she was told, we're sorry, this movie theater is for whites only.
That was in 39, huh?
Yeah. So then everybody was wondering, after that made news, right? What if this wins the Academy Award?
Did that make the news?
Well, that's the question. I mean, where did it make, on what page did it make the news, right? So finally, at the Academy Awards, it was up for 13 nominations, including Best Picture, right?
Yeah.
Including Best Supporting Actress with Hattie McDaniel on the list.
Yeah.
So what do they do in Los Angeles when they present the award? They say, you can come in, but you have to sit at the table with the other black people in the back of the room.
I figured California would be much more forward thinking.
Yeah.
But I guess not.
Not forward. She got in the building.
Oh, my God.
And she didn't have to serve drinks, right?
And by the way, she won the award.
I know she did.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't remember. I just knew that she did because I saw something recently about it.
Yeah.
But, there's a lot of controversy about that movie, and with good reason. It's...
Yeah, I mean, doesn't that movie make the South look like it wasn't such a bad way of living back then?
It's Richard Wicca on the screen there.
I see.
Yeah, well, no, it made it look like slavery wasn't so bad. That was but now when they show the movie, there's always a little, not disclaimer, but they talk about it beforehand, like on
they give it some context.
Yeah,
huh?
context. That's it.
Apropos to this story,
Yes, sir.
Mae West
Yeah.
had a friend who was a very close friend and happened to have an all-weather tan. And Mae typically would hold up at a hotel
Yeah.
so that somebody else was doing the cleaning. And she had a date with her friend who didn't show up. So she called him to find out why he blew her off and was told that he was stopped at the door of the hotel and told that he was not allowed entry.
Oh, God.
So Miss West, being Miss West, bought the hotel.
Wow.
I remember that.
That's
Or
awesome.
that was no longer the policy of this hotel.
I like it. I knew I liked it. I dressed up as Mae West for Halloween one year.
Did people know who you were?
You know what, my mother, oh, what a piece of work. So I had a blonde wig on, and I mean, I already have curves, but I stuffed like slippers, and I had a bigger size bra, and I put slippers in there, so I was even bigger. I had a tight black dress on, and high heels, and I mean, I really did it up, and I got out, and I was coming. In fact, I came over here because the show was happening that night. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to come in and show everybody my Mae West costume, and before I left the house, my mother looked at me, because you know how I'm conservative in the way I dress, and I don't wear a lot of makeup, blah blah blah. So my mother, and I had a lot of makeup on. My mother looked at me and she says, "Oh my God, if you dress like that all the time, you have lots of boyfriends."
No. Oh my God.
And I said,
that's hilarious.
I said, "Ma, I have slippers in my bra."
That's funny.
Your point being?
Oh my God, I loved it. My mother, she was something. She really was. She doesn't read a lot of books. She read a lot of books though about movie stars and all their exploits. Most of the sexual stuff. She loved that stuff. Mm. But
a lot of people did.
But my mother only graduated from the 8th grade, and she could read a book. Did you know that our reading level in the United States is at the 6th grade level?
If you average it out, you mean?
Yes.
Oh.
The average reading level in the United States, the median, I guess, is a difference between, is 6th grade.
Oh,
30% of Americans are illiterate, Paula. I took training in teaching reading. It blew my mind.
I'm but
30% of Americans can't read at all, or they can just read like street signs or maybe a little bit of a menu like beef, chicken, blah blah. They recognize the pictures.
Wow.
These people vote.
I was watching. That's why we're having problems. I was watching CNN, and they were talking about. I was listening to something on NPR, and they had these medical forms, and they used AI to dumb them down to the 6th grade level so that people would understand them.
Oh boy.
Scary.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, my son. Oh, and my son Tom on drums. I didn't mention that before. Okay, so we have 2 minutes. Is there something you can throw in 2 minutes?
UB has all universities now have an endowment. You tell your graduates, give to the endowment because we'll invest it, and then we use that money to keep the university going. UB's is $1.4 billion.
Really?
I didn't know it was that high. You know what Harvard's is?
A lot of doctors and engineers.
What's Harvard's?
So UB's is $1.4 billion. Harvard's is 50.7.
How much? 50?
50.7 billion.
Yeah, the article I saw yesterday said Harvard's endowment is bigger than the GDP of like 100 countries or something.
Yeah.
What's wrong
That's
with us?
That's a lot of power.
What's wrong with us? What's wrong with us? Why? I don't get it. I mean, do we really not see what's going on around us?
Mm.
What is wrong with us? Fuck. I'm very disillusioned. But then again, I've been disillusioned for a long time. All right, so we're running out of time. So I just want to say thank you to everybody. Thank you, James, where are you in Buffalo?
No, I am in parts unknown.
Okay, parts unknown. All right, so now what? Paul, you've got all these beautiful women behind you. I am. I'm not used to these pictures of yours.
Well, These were a dance studio here in Newfoundland. They asked me to come take pictures of
Awesome.
their opening
Oh, it
performance.
was very, very generous of you to agree to do that.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
this is Paul and Brian and Richard, of course, and my son Tom on drums. And I really enjoyed doing this. Thank you so much for helping me do it. Okay, bye.